Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here. And in this video, I don't want to make this too long, but I want to talk about the fallacy of traditional diets and drawing from traditional diets as a ideology for to base modern diets on. And this is what is very common, at least in macrobiotic circles, but I think in other, basically all grain based diets use this sort of paradigm to justify a very carbohydrate rich diet, carb heavy, low fat. And it's a fallacy, basically, and I want to go through why. I've already touched on all these points, but I just want to make a video specifically about this for anyone who missed it. So yeah, let's get started. Actually, before I begin, moon is still in Scorpio. We just had yesterday the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio. Sun's in Taurus, moon's in Scorpio. And let's just look at that really quick. Because why not? All right. So I have it set to clock, which means it's there it goes. It's tracking real time, you can see here. Moon's still in Scorpio. The eclipse would have happened at 14 degrees Scorpio, where the shadow of the Earth is cast upon the moon, creating an eclipse. And these are the eclipse points, the nodes. That's how you know. When the sun and moon are close enough within range of the eclipse points, either together or opposite, then you have an eclipse, either solar eclipse or lunar eclipse. We just had the lunar eclipse, and I already made a whole video about that, so I'm not going to really dive too deep into it. I just wanted to touch on it. I don't know if you noticed, but so like when moon's in Scorpio, the emotions become really intense, and like there's desires, and like very hard to satisfy. It's not just desires, it's desires that basically are really difficult to satisfy. And so Scorpio moon, either natally or in transit or progress or whatever, is going to create this feeling of intense, deep desire that is very difficult to satisfy. And so it's like like an itch you can't scratch. It's very transformational, deeply transformational. It will challenge you. It will upset you. It will cause emotional turbulence, right? We also have the mutual reception between Moon and Mars individually. Neither of these are in good dignity. Mars in Cancer is also very difficult. It is full of passion and desire, tends towards violence or hypersexuality, because Mars is that aggression and Cancer is very emotional. There's not much inhibition with Mars in Cancer. It's just sort of like, taking what it wants, because that's Mars's nature, and Cancer is just, it lends itself to that emotionality. But with the mutual reception, there's sort of an exchange, an energetic exchange. That's what a mutual reception, especially a harmonious one with a trine like this, where the moon gains energy from the Cancerian, its natal Cancerian, and domicile Cancerian energy, and Mars gains energy from the Scorpionic energy. So they can sort of help each other out and balance that out a little bit. I like to say it's a silver lining on a dark cloud. But anyway, this can be a new beginning, depending on the house that it falls in, conjunctions, aspects, and all that. And the rulership, whatever house moon rules for you, specifically moon, that you'd pay attention to. So for me, mine was, I already went through this, but it rules the 9th house. It's in the 1st house. So there's something of the 9th house, which can be, again, I already went through this, but like, connection to God, philosophy, religion, higher education. In the 1st house will deal with me specifically, my personal, my deepest sense of self. So like some deep transformation in relation to my philosophical connection to God. So something perhaps existentially crisis, like transformative death and rebirth type stuff. In any case, you can probably feel it if you're paying attention. Moon in Scorpio will have you being like, I want something, I want, like, I know it could be lots of things depending on your orientation. For some, it could be unsatisfied sexual desires or like companionship, intimacy. Or for others, it could turn to drugs and alcohol. Others might become more aggressive, or existentially depressed or something like that. Just in any case, and then there's going to be a very strong Taurian influence here of food, indulgence, laziness, beauty, art, materialism, all that. There's going to be that playoff there, bouncing back and forth. In any case, so that's that. Intense times right now. But let's go into the fallacy of traditional diets and why it doesn't apply to modern living. Okay, so first of all, let's go back. All these people that are talking about traditional diets, they only go back so far. They're like traditional diets, meaning up until from the point of modern civilization, right? Modern civilization is defined by, where nomadic tribes who were chasing animals learn to grow crops, especially grains. And why grains is because they need that source of energy, right? Our body runs on two types of fuel, either fat or carbohydrates. And then the third one is translates to both. We always need it as protein, right? And there's animal and vegetable protein, right? So when they figured out, when these traditional, extremely like even more traditional type people, the nomads, the tribal types, who incidentally had no cancer or diabetes or anything like that, any of these modern diseases, because they were eating like high levels of plant phytonutrients and they weren't feeding their cancers with glucose. Cancer feeds on glucose, carbohydrates. So that's why modern people, especially in grain heavy diets, cancer is epidemic, right? But in any case, so they started to grow grain, right? Because it's difficult to chase after animals, right? Animals run away from you, and they can survive, but not in very large quantities unless you're farming animals, right? You're going to be limited. And it's tribal because it's much more efficient to hunt in groups and to survive in groups. Then you have a group running around chasing after the animals. That's a tribe, right? So and that's worldwide. Tribes are worldwide, right? And it's not to say that they only lived on animals. They ate, whatever they could, including carbohydrates, wild grasses. But when they started domesticating the wild grasses, they evolved into grains, right? And then they could build civilizations, cities, because that's how they got their energy from. And then they could farm, and then they could, incorporate animal agriculture in there. And then, like, of course, as time goes on, then the rich get the best of that. The poor are still eating, rice and bread and flour and all that corn, but the rich get to eat all that the richness of the animal food products. So they have a slightly different diet, because especially in early agriculture, it's not going to be that efficient, right? Your animals are not going to be super big or luxurious. They're going to be thin. They're not going to produce as much. And so not everyone can live on animal products. Sure, you can get some, depending on how much money you have, how successful you are in the society. It depends on how much animal food you can get. But most people, grains, carbohydrates is basically poor people's food. And that's not to diminish it. It's not to say we don't need any grains or carbohydrates, but it's basically poor people's food because it's just so abundant, right? You can go tons of grains and feed tons of people with that. And of course, we need other nutrients, but grain is the energy source, right? Then you can include things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, other starchy roots and tubers that will, add to the carbohydrate, energy, nutrients. But fat is a commodity. Fat is much more of a commodity than carbohydrates. So this really explains the traditional diet, right? Why were people eating grains? Because it's just a matter of practicality, right? It's just simple. It's just basic math. Like, what can feed most people? Grain. I mean, that's basically it. Yeah, maybe tubers in some places, right? But it's basically grain. What's going to feed most people? Grain. I mean, that's just, it's not because like this is like the perfect food for human beings. No, but what it can do is also feed the brain. So you have these very like physical hunter-gatherer types who are running around chasing after animals, and they're very strong, very physically fit, but not that intellectually. It's not that they weren't wise or intelligent. I'm not saying that at all. No, intelligence and intellectuality are two different things. But there was no need to be very intellectual. Wisdom, yes. Intelligence, yes. Right? How to avoid death, danger, how to identify, poisonous mushrooms versus, edible mushrooms, all that. Wisdom, spirituality, all that. Very, very much intact. But when they started eating carbohydrates, it fueled this very active thinking, and then they could become much more intellectual and develop modern scientific stuff, like sort of like, oh, we could, carve a stone or put some wood together in a circle and then attach it to some other wood and like this formation, and then we can travel much easier. And then if we add animals, we can get like this cart type thing and like move from town to town, village to village, and trade, right? And so that sort of thing they could develop. And then we could do, like Romans developed aqueducts and all of that. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but like the development of civilization, that grain feeds that. It does, especially cooked grain. You add fire, you add carbohydrates. It's easily broken down, easily digestible, feeds the brain. Constantly. You can get constant nourishment to the brain. The brain goes bigger, and there's much more intellectual development. And for these early types of people, they needed that, right? They needed to develop their intellectuality to be able to think in conceptual terms of conceptual terms. And that's what the use of it. But there were so many things that were different back then. I mean, first of all, you talk about the food, the quality of the food. It was all organic. There was no such thing as non-organic. There just wasn't, right? But also, not just the food quality. Not only was it 100% organic, it wasn't adulterated. It wasn't messed with. It wasn't GMO. It wasn't. People say like modern wheat is genetically modified. I just need to. Yeah, sometimes it is, but there's the difference between the breeding, crossbreeding, and genetic modification. So there's the two distinctions. Modern wheat went through major crossbreeding to become more efficient and feed more people. And that's one of the arguments about why people shouldn't eat modern wheat. And I agree with that to some extent. I mean, there are exceptions, I think. But in any case, so food quality and availability, people needed to eat seasonally because you couldn't, if you lived up north, you weren't going to get tropical fruits. Maybe, in more modern civilization, you could get through the trade routes, like Silk Road and whatnot, you could get dry goods, stored goods, things like grains, beans, nuts, seeds, spices, herbs that were dried and preserved, right? Anything that was dried and preserved, you could get from further latitude, but fresh fruits, vegetables, no way. Like if you were living up north, you weren't going to get bananas and papayas and things like that, mangoes, pineapples, right? Even oranges. You're only going to get locally available, seasonally available produce, fruits, vegetables, and anything that could be stored again. You could store from the summer into the winter, grains, beans, nuts, seeds, spices, herbs, things like that could be dried and preserved, right? So those are the things, that's the difference, right? In food. 100% organic, top quality, and seasonal availability, and non-adulterated, either through genetic modification or like the modern breeding methods, which greatly alter the nutrition and all the genetics and biology of the plants, right? The air quality was hugely different, right? They didn't have chemtrails. There weren't planes spraying aluminum and barium and mercury and lead and into the air, which we're all breathing in, and it's landing on our food, it's in our water, it's everywhere, it's ubiquitous, right? This is unavoidable, right? There was no electromagnetic radiation, which we know is an issue and can cause genetic mutations, which leads to cancer. There was no 5G radiation, which is another type of radiation. There was no Wi-Fi radiation, right? All of these are radiations. They all have a genetic impact on our genes, causing alterations, which lead to cancer and other, terminal illnesses. the water quality was pristine as can be, right? I mean, except for, when we're talking about sewage. Plumbing is a modern invention that has saved many lives and got rid of many diseases, which vaccines take credit for, but it was actually modern plumbing. So, I mean, obviously there are some, better qualities. If you have like, you're pooping and peeing in the water and then you're drinking it, you're probably, you're going to get all sorts of harmful bacterias and whatnot, microorganisms and that sort of thing. But in general, the water quality was top notch. If you you take tap water these days, it's full of not only fluoride, which is a neurotoxin and has no, benefit for the teeth, even though they say it's not, it just completely ruins your health in so many ways. Not only that, all the pharmaceutical medications which people consume, they not only dump them out wholesale into the toilet or water supply. A lot of the times they pee and poo it out, and that goes right back into the tap water. We're consuming tons of pharmaceuticals and all sorts of chemicals and waste products and toxins in the tap water. And even if you have the best water filtration system, even if it's a whole house filtration system, which is extremely expensive and only a few people can afford that, even then, you're still, whenever you go out, you're getting all these toxins because most places are not filtering them out, right? You drink coffee or tea, or you go out to dinner, your wine, your food, it's all being watered with this heavily toxic water, right? So it's unavoidable. It's unavoidable for anyone, unless you're living in like a remote area and you're completely remote from society. But that's like 99.99% of the people are exposed to these toxins on a daily basis, no matter how hard you try. You're still going to get some of it, right? And besides that, most people can't afford a full house water filtration system. So even if you filter your drinking and cooking water, you're still like, brushing your teeth in it, showering in it, bathing in it, washing your hands in it, you're still absorbing it, right? The soil quality is depleted. Most soil is like heavily, most people are not going to be able to afford all organic. And even if you are, you're still getting a lot of the toxic residue. But I can't afford all organic. I just can't. Like, I'm lucky enough to have a landscaping gig with a friend of mine where a lot of times I can harvest wild vegetables. Like yesterday, I had a great wild haul. I found a bunch of burdock, dandelions, violets, and mugwort, all organically grown, pretty much wild. I mean, even though the soil has been cultivated, it's still good quality. It's organic. They don't use, I know because my friend manages these houses. So he's like, oh yeah, this is it's all organic. Everything's organic here. So I was just harvesting, and they're weeds to them, and I go home and eat them. And these weeds are highly medicinal, and they purify the blood, the intestines, the organs, because they have such a high capacity to survive under any circumstances. If you know about, especially like dandelions, plantain, burdock, all of these wild or semi-wild fruits and vegetables, not fruits, vegetables, have a high capacity for toxins. They can grow under any circumstance, which means I'm not suggesting you get the dirty ones, the ones that are growing by the roadside, but if you get the clean ones, that means that they can absorb the toxins in your body and really, take them out and really strengthen you, right? So that's just a side note. But for most vegetables and food that we eat, it's grown in like heavily depleted soil, and that just means that only the major nutrients that need to grow are in there. It's basically devoid of minerals and the raw ingredients for phytonutrients. So these plants are very weak, that most people are consuming plants, and then the animals eat those plants. Still not getting, you're getting a concentration of nutrition with animal food. That's one of the reasons why it's dangerous to be vegan, because of malnutrition these days. You're still not getting adequate nutrition, and therefore supplementation is necessary for most people as we get older. As we get older, we need to pay a lot more attention, because our body, like young people, are just like energetically wealthy. They got huge bank accounts. They can just afford to abuse themselves. All young people know that, and they just I was the same for many years. I was just poo-pooing everything. Like, no, just eat food. It's all good, like, I could, or whether you're ideologically, like, if you're vegan, you can get away with it, or if you're eating meat or what, junk food, whatever. Lots of partying. But as you get older, you can no longer do that, and you really have to pay attention, and that's why it becomes important, right? Activity levels for traditional people was, just off the charts, active day and night, right? And that goes a huge way. It covers for so much. Even though their diets were carbohydrate rich, they were burning it off all the time. And that is a huge problem with carbohydrates, is that when you're not burning off the carbohydrates, then you get metabolic disease. Your metabolism slows down. You become insulin resistant, and you no longer, if you're eating carbs all the time, you're no longer burning fat because your body doesn't know how to. Yeah, you might. There's a lot of skinny people, and they're maybe burning some fat, but still, like, they're going to have all sorts of blood sugar issues because their body doesn't know how to burn fat. This is on a cellular level. The cells, the individual cells, become adapted to your diet, right? So if you're always consuming carbohydrates, then the cells on a cellular level, or even on a precellular level, the mitochondria, which are organelles within cells, they stop burning fat. They only burn carbs, and when you don't have carbs, then you don't burn fat. You just become hangry, right? Everyone knows this, right? You don't eat, your blood sugar drops, your body's not burning fat, you're not burning your fat stores. That's just stagnating. It's a stagnant pool, right? And you're just waiting for your next intake of carbohydrates, right? That's the whole thing behind the Snickers commercial. It's like the beast, the angry, and then they eat a Snickers and they're like, oh, that's better. That's not healthy at all. That was me majorly, right? And that's most people majorly, because your body does not know how to burn fat, and that's not good because it's only storing fat. And then you get these stagnant fat pools in your body that become carcinogenic and cancerous because fat stores toxins. And when these toxins don't get burned through, cycled through, then it becomes problematic. So the high levels of activity and periodic nutritional deficiencies, their metabolism is going to be much more active, right? Their body still has some ability to burn fat, right? Even if they're eating a lot of grain, because they're active all the time, and so they're constantly training their cells and their mitochondria to burn fat. Modern people are inactive, and the kind of activity that they recommend is very minimal, right? They kind of poo-poo it. It's like, oh, we're thin. Yeah, even if you're relatively thin, you can still have metabolic disease and insulin resistance, and toxic pools of fat gathering in your body that eventually become cancerous. Environment, right? They lived in a completely natural environment. They didn't live in synthetic homes with synthetic building materials, concrete, electromagnetic wires all over the place. Everything was natural, right? They did not have air conditioning. They did not have central heating. They were not these princes and princesses. Like, oh, modern people are just so weak and lazy, right? Comparatively, right? And they just want more vacations and more, fancy dinners out, and more, coddling. Everyone wants to be coddled all the time, like fancy cars, fancy houses, no difficulty, no hardship. And these are the things that make us strong and healthy, and keep our immunity strong. Cancer is basically an immunity issue. When our immunity runs low, cancer grows, right? And all these natural stressors that the natural environment provides keep our immunity high, right? The cold and the heat, cold in winter, heat in summer, that keeps our immunity extremely high. And then our body can naturally fight off these diseases. And then with these modern people, unless you're into like, I don't know what the name for it is, like the cold therapy and, intermittent fasting and high intensity training, all that. unless you're into that whole thing, you're going to be running away from any discomfort, and that's going to make your immunity extremely low, and you're going to get, you know, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, nutritional deficiencies. Nutritional deficiencies are rampant within the grain-based community, like, and the teeth quality, everyone has like, you know, like poor teeth, or their teeth are falling out, you know. Even in my family, my son, he only has one grandparent left. That's sad. Three of his grandparents are dead, and they were all, you know, macrobiotic grain-based diets. And the one that's left isn't that healthy. You know, my grandparents, who were basically, they ate everything, but they cooked. They knew like whole foods, natural food. They didn't like to shop at the health food store. They shopped at the supermarket, but they were still eating grains, beans, you know, meat, dairy, sugar, all of it. But they were a lot healthier because they were getting a lot more well-rounded nutrition. They weren't ideologues. They were just like, let's eat food, let's, you know, enjoy ourselves, let's eat everything, let's cook. Basically, that's their whole mentality, and they did a lot better than both my parents. They lived till in their 90s, and you know, as you know, my father died in his 70s, my mother's in her 70s, and I'm not going to explicitly divulge in all her health problems, but let's just say she's less healthy than my grandparents in many obvious ways, like very obviously, right? Okay. And she's a puritanical, like always shops, gets the most organic, you know, veggies all the time, like too puritanical, but her health is not good, right? So, I mean, you know, between being non-puritanical and shopping at the supermarket, but eating everything, versus being puritanical and shopping at Whole Foods, everything is organic, and being more vegan, the supermarket eating everything is healthier, just like it's healthier, like no comparison, right? Any case, activity, environment, cold and heat. You know, it's difficult to force yourself to not have heat in the winter, right? But there are things you can do, right? I take a cold shower every morning, and yeah, in the summer the cold water is not that cold, but still, it helps when you do it every single day. You're building up the mitochondria to produce more heat, because you need a heat energy to compensate for the cold. So then your body builds more mitochondria, and it burns more fat, more energy, and you increase your metabolism. You want to increase your metabolism, especially as you get older, because your metabolism slows down, you burn less energy, and then everything slows down, and then you gather more, and you gather more excess, you gather more weight, more fat, and everything just becomes like sludgy, heavy, toxic, and you gather excess, and you gather disease. You want to keep your metabolism up high. That's what kids have, a very active, high metabolism, right? And they just burn through everything. That's why it doesn't matter so much for kids. In fact, they need carbohydrates, they need sweets, right? So don't put your kids on a low carb, low sweet diet. That's not healthy. They need that. As an adult, yeah, you do need different things. You need to watch out for carbs, you need to watch out for sweets, big time, right? Low carb diet for adults, not no carb, because we need the variety, but low carb. And occasionally, just to train your body to burn fat instead of carbohydrates, go no carb for a while. Do it. Like, train your body. Don't be a wimp. Don't be a pussy. Like, because you're gonna get in trouble. Like, train your body well, because as you get older, because if you don't, you're gonna be weak. You're gonna get cancer, diabetes, nutritional deficiencies, heart disease, dementia is another thing that's related to metabolic weakness. Your brain's gonna start to get weak too. Cold and heat, ice bath. I don't do it every single night because I can feel my feet, you know, like when I do like a foot ice bath, I have one of those Lowe's buckets, you know, one of the 5-gallon buckets, and I put like 4 ice trays, 3 ice packs, and a tub of I put like one of those little, like, I don't know what size plastic, I fill it with water just to get the water really, really cold, right, in the low 30s. And then I'll do like 3 sessions with my feet, and I'll do 2 sessions with my hands. That's going to greatly increase my metabolism. It kills off all the dead cells. It kills off all the weak mitochondria in those areas. And the reason why it's important is because these are extremities. And when you're like for diabetics, like the extremities are the first ones to go. But if you keep the extremities strong, you're keeping the core strong as well, because you have to, right? And so my hands and feet are looking fantastic, right? All the dead skin, all the dry skin, it it makes them really strong, right? And it makes everything really strong. It makes everything work better. And if you can do it, take ice baths once in a while, like a couple times a week. That's great, 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 right? But a minimal, do cold showers. I recommend, highly recommend. And it feels excellent. Once you get over the squeamishness, like, oh, cold, what? I don't want to be uncomfortable. Like, get over yourself. Like, you want to die of cancer? Fine, go ahead. Like, really, I don't care. If you're that weak and pathetic, die of cancer. Like, I'm not going to shed one tear for you, unless I know you and I miss you, but that's my issue. But um I'm not trying to be harsh, but like, just do it. Like, stop being weak, stop being pathetic, stop being lame. Just, like ice foot bath, ice whole bath, any case. And heat too. Sauna, there's many benefits to sauna as well, right? And natural stressors, like just when I do landscaping, it's not just like going to the gym and being all cozy. I'm putting my body in like very difficult positions. Sometimes I gotta crouch underneath a tree and like weed, and like I'm getting all scratched up, and like like a bug's crawling on me, and I'm just like, I call it like landscaping yoga. I mean, that's one, like, so just natural activity like gardening, walking, like any activity you can get, even going to the gym, is if that's all you got, do it, right? Walk a lot, ride your bike, running, cardiovascular, high intensity training, like research all these things where you're like push your body really hard for a short time spirit, like sprints, like you're just like run for a short while to get your maximum, like you just max it out, like maximum energy for a little while. You get your heart to the maximum capacity, right? Or you're biking, you bike as hard as you can for a little while. Or I do jumping jacks. You just like push yourself to the limit. That's going to stretch your capacity. These natural stressors are really going to help you out a lot. And traditional people had these things. In modern society, we just want everything convenient, easy. Oh, I'm tired. So what if you're tired? Well, push yourself. Like, you're gonna die young if you're just like always like going easy on yourself. If you're a prince or a princess, I'm sorry, you're gonna die young of illness. If that's your mentality, you're gonna die young. You're gonna be weak, pathetic. No, push yourself. Like, get stronger. The whole thing about living long is being strong. That's the mentality. That's the mindset. Like, how can I be stronger? Physical muscle is important, because it burns fat, it burns glucose. It's a sign that your immunity is strong. There's much more backup, energetic backup. Like when you have cancer, there's like the muscle wasting. More muscle, skeletal muscle will buy you more time, right? Like, if you don't have any skeletal muscle, you'll die quick. Get strong. It's more muscle is healthier, because it shows that your body, your physicality is well developed, right? I have muscle. Like, you should see me without a shirt on. I look good. I do a lot of activity. I'm active every single day, even on the weekends, and I don't sleep late. I don't allow myself to get lazy. I do, even on the weekends. I'm like pull-ups, push-ups, jumping jacks, long walks. Yeah. So it's a fallacy. Like, anyone who's like, this is what traditional people like, I know I keep harping on this, but it needs to be said, because people don't like, they're not putting two and two together. They're just not. They're just like, I'm a traditional person, I eat grain. You're not. You suck. You're an idiot. You're dumb. You're stupid. Yeah. I mean that. Like, I mean that with all my heart. And I mean that, like, my intentions are good, even though my expression is harsh and strong. Like, I just want people to wake up and realize, like, no, you can't be a prince or princess and pretend that you're a traditional person. Like, you're nothing. You're nothing. You're nobody. You're a loser. You're a loser if you're saying that. Like, Somebody's got to be harsh because there's too much pussyfooting around. There's everyone just wants to be polite and pathetic and weak and like this little, like, oh, everyone's a baby. Like most modern people are babies and they need to get beat up because they're gonna die young. They're gonna die young with cancer or heart disease or diabetes or at least get weak and demented. And I'm gonna be the one to say it. Like, you suck. Like, get a grip. Rather you hear some harsh words from me that hopefully will motivate you than you die young with cancer, because the message that's coming out from all these people is just terrible. Like, they might be super like detailed and like, oh, I know all this blah blah blah, but they're missing the big picture. And I'm a big picture guy. Like, your whole orientation's off, right? And I love some of these people. It's not like, don't mistake me. I'm not a bad guy. I really come from the right place. But like, I need to tell you to wake up and stop doing this bullshit. Like, there's too many, like, it's rampant. It's disease. Like, it's like, oh, we'll just, eat some brown rice and we're super healthy. No, you're not. You're just like, there's so many people who are just like, they look like they already died. That's how bad they look. They look like they're already dead. And if they're not already dead, many of them are already dead. They're gonna die soon. And it just like breaks my heart. Like, all these people following this path, and they're just like, oh, it's really healthy, and they have an excuse for every single person who's dropped dead, which, by the way, is just like too many to name. I mean, the levels of cancer in macrobiotics is just like horrifyingly bad. And not many people have the balls to say it. They don't have the guts because they're too wimpy. They're too pathetic. It's horrifyingly bad. Like, so if I were you, I would steer clear of macrobiotics. And I just, like, anyone can come at me. Anyone. Like, I challenge everyone. Like, everyone in the world. Like, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Because I'm sick of it. I'm sick and tired of it. Right? You all look like you're dead already. Like, pretty much. Unless you're doing things differently. If you're just following the standard grain-based diet, macrobiotic, all that, you look like you're dead. I'm sorry. You look and you're probably going to die soon. And I know that's harsh. I know that some people don't want to hear that, but I have to tell you that it's not the way to go. We need much more, all of these things that I mentioned, to keep our immunity strong, to keep our health strong. The standard macrobiotic diet, the way it's taught, the way it's practiced, is just, it's good for a little while to clean out from a lot of the excesses of the modern diet. After that, it's not good. Unless some of these people are living in very harsh conditions, like, and even then it's questionable. But like, exposure to cold, lots of activity, exposure to hardship, they're keeping their immunity strong, right? And they're able to do it a lot longer and a lot better. But the ones who are the princes and princesses, I'm sorry, you suck. You're gonna die young, and your diet sucks. Your health sucks. You're not healthy, because also you're ignoring all the modern medical advice. You're probably not even getting tested for all your nutritional deficiencies. But there's a whole, I mean, I'll just say it. I was vitamin B1 deficient for most of my life, and I did not know it because nobody in the macrobiotic community was paying any attention to that. And they still don't, mostly, by and large, right? And I'm not talking about the exceptions. Yes, there might be exceptions here, there. Some people are like starting to catch on. Okay, we need to pay. But like, my diet, my practices were leading me towards an early death. And it wasn't healthy. It's still not healthy. I mean, my diet now is healthy, much healthier, because I'm paying attention, right? But I was just like, oh, they don't know we're traditional people. We eat traditional diets, and it's worked for them. It's going to work for me. But no, I was not a traditional person. I was not doing things the way traditional people were doing. And I was vitamin B1 deficient, probably, and minerally deficient many, many times. And that causes tons and tons of problems. Mainly for me, it was anxiety and nervous system issues. Like, I was just in a constant high stress state. I lost my hair very young, which is genetic partially, but like, also like my levels of anxiety and nervousness and fight or flight kind of nervous system orientation was just off the charts. I just had tremendous levels of anxiety. And yeah, it kept my metabolism high because I was always like shaking and nervous. So I was always skinny, burning, and that, that has its own benefits because it keeps you slim, keeps your metabolism high, burns off all the, but eventually it's like, you just get burnout, and that's what happens. Then it reverts to the opposite, adrenal fatigue. You just don't want to do anything. You just become depressed, suicidal. You're just like, I can't do anything. I can't make it in this world because there's just no energy left. Right. So I'm aware of all that now, but it's rampant in the macro community, in the grain-fed diet community, these nutritional deficiencies, osteoporosis, just teeth falling out, actual osteoporosis, like people have had very, very severe osteoporosis cases, tons and tons of cancer, heart disease, people just dropping dead, all kinds of really, really bad stuff. So we need good nutrition. We need to pay attention. And it's not just like pamper yourself, go on more vacations, have everything be like, like pure and clean and vegan and all that crap. And no, that's going to kill you. I mean, it just will. And I speak from experience. I speak from being all around them. I was a traveler when I was young. I went to Europe. I went to Boston. I went to Alaska. I went to California. I went to Austin. I've seen all the macro communities, all the big ones. Maybe not all the major ones in Europe and America. I've been around, and they're all unhealthy by and large. Yeah, there's some healthy people among them who are doing things again differently. Maybe they're incorporating more animal food. Maybe they're just very active. Maybe they're just very strong to begin with. But it's by and large, it's a very, very unhealthy community. And I'm sorry to say, because a lot of the people I love, and I don't wish any harm on them. I wish them to change. And that's why I speak so strongly, because everyone's just like, like wants to be gentle, wants to keep up appearances, and wants to be polite. And I don't want to be polite. And I don't even care if anyone likes me or not. Like, I'd rather people dislike me, but hear my message, because I actually don't need that many people like to, in fact, people annoy me. So that's why I'm like, I'd rather people dislike me, but hear what I have to say. So that's kind of like my strategy about this. Like, I don't really want that much attention, personal attention. I'd rather just kind of like attention from a distance, like people like acknowledge what I say, but not be like, hey Joe, let's talk on the phone, or like write me messages. Like, I'm just like, fuck off. Like, I really don't want to hear what you have to say. So that's why I am the way I am. It's kind of like, it's just my personality. I'm not that personable. I really don't need you to be close to me. I need you to hear what I have to say. So in any case, guys, my heart's in the right place. I really, really want people to be healthy. And a lot of the messaging that's coming out of these communities just isn't healthy, right? We need less carbs. Carbs feed cancer. In case you didn't notice, cancer feeds on two things: glucose, which is all sugar, sugar, but grains, whole grains, even your whole grain, most whole grain, brown rice, whatever, all the other ones, barley, millet, organic, even organic sourdough. It's going to help a lot, with that digestibility, but it can still feed cancer. The other one is glutamate. We can't control for glutamate because we need glutamate in our diets for all kinds of reasons, but we can control glucose, and that's one of the ways to control cancer, is to lower your glucose intake or completely drop it off a cliff, like go full keto for periods of time, whether you're fighting cancer or you just want to train your body to burn fat, right? Because the analogy here is that, do you want a stagnant pool of fat, or do you want a river that's constantly flowing and renewing itself? I want a river, I want a stream, I want a healthy flow. Therefore, I want my body to burn fat and burn up the toxins that are stored within the fat, and consume new fat and consume good quality fats, rather than just storing the old fats. If you're just on a carb diet, you're storing fats, you're not burning fats. it's just straight line. Like that's it. Like if you're a carb heavy diet, you're not burning fat, you're storing fat. Unless you're extremely active and you're training your body to get through that fat barrier. But even still, like go towards low carb keto to train your body, and then you can come back. You know, I'm not saying long term, because for digestion, for the gut microbiome, we need a wide variety of foods, including all carbohydrates, some carbohydrates. But learn, teach your body about fasting carbohydrates. Educate your body, right? Be a little bit objective about it. Stop being so subjective. You are not your body. You are not your thoughts. Remove yourself so that you can have a bit more sort of subjectivity about it, objectivity about it, right? Don't take yourself so personally, right? That's in spirituality. That's one of the things that you learn, is to not be so personal with yourself. Like if you don't like something, who cares, right? Get over it. Like that's not an issue. Like if it means like having health, having longevity, having vitality, having a good working brain, just do it. Like get over it. Like I just, it's just pathetic, and it's just like, it just makes me, I don't like that. It's, oh, cold water. Oh, I don't. It's dandelions are bitter. No, I'm not gonna eat them. They're bitter. They're fibrous. Like I want to hit these people. I want to beat these people up. Like you are that pathetic. You are that weak. You are that, like, you really deserve to get sick and die young. I mean, okay. I'm compassionate. No, I don't want that, but like part of me does. So, you know, we're always yes, no, this, that, dual-sided. In any case, guys, just grow up, grow a pair, grow some guts, grow some spine, get some minerals, right? And stop it with this ridiculous ideology of traditional, you know, veganism, all that crap, right? This is like, it's not healthy. 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 It's just not healthy. There are all these people. They look like they're, you know, they look like they're dead already, or they look like they're like gonna fall over because they're so frail and weak. And yeah, they might, some of them might be very thin, but they're on the mineral deficient side. They're not getting adequate protein. They're not getting adequate mineralization. They can't do anything. Like you know, go on a hike with them, they'll probably fall over, right? Unless they've trained, and hopefully they're eating some animal food, right? All right, animal food and vegetable food are complementary, right? There's so many vegetable food poisons in the vegetable world. Vegetable food is not safe. You can't just be like, oh, I'm vegan, I'm healthy. Vegetables are full of toxins. Vegetables are trying to kill you. And I just like, do some research. Stop being an idiot. Vegetables want you dead because they don't want you eating them. Like that's just, it's just their natural defenses. Vegetables are the alchemists of the world. They produce all sorts of chemicals. A lot of the chemicals they produce are to keep you from eating them, because you know, they don't want you eating them. They don't. Animals run away. They'll bite you. They'll kick you, right? They'll scratch you. Some will poison you, but plants will poison the shit out of you, right? Plants can be highly toxic, even the ones that we grow. So in any case, animal food will make up for a lot of the plant defense. So eat those plants, but learn about them, and then balance it out with some healthy, good quality animal foods, right? Fish, eggs, good quality dairy. You know, goat for dairy, goat and sheep's milk dairy is probably the best. A2 dairy, if you're going for cow dairy, fermented dairy, better than, you know, raw milk, like so raw, you know, like raw goat's milk, raw sheep's milk, raw A2 cow's milk. That will also be good. But most milk is pasteurized, so I don't recommend that. So go for the fermented. Good quality organic eggs, wild fish. Don't buy farm fish, wild fish, especially a smaller fish, you know, like wild sardines, wild salmon, wild herring, all that, extremely good. And some meat if you need it, like grass-fed meat, right? Don't be so ideological if you want health. Yeah. And you're active in the world. If you want to be a monk and that's really your whole thing, fine. But just be honest. Like you can do like way more for your spirituality by being active in the world, including some good quality meat, just by like doing good things, right? Being active in the world, doing good things. And you might need some meat to do that, right? Just be real with yourself. Like there's way less you know, like sometimes you have to invest, you have to buy things, you have to invest in order to get a greater return. So what I'm saying is, like, even if there's some karmic cost to eating meat, you might be doing way more good by eating that meat and then reinvesting that energy into worldly pursuits that will burn way more karma than you would by avoiding the meat. So even if you're talking about just karmically, you can, you have to know where your place in the world is, and eat accordingly to that. Like, some people are just like, they're completely devoted to spirituality. They spend all their days meditating, and they're monks, and they're live a completely spiritual life. For them, it might be advantageous to not eat meat, right? But for most people who want to live a worldly life, you might need some meat just to be active and competitive in the world, and to burn off your karma by doing worldly things. So we have to be nuanced about it. We can't just be like, no, animal food's bad, and it's ridiculous. It's stupid. So in any case, guys, I think I said enough. It's a fallacy. This traditional diet, it's a fallacy. It's a fallacy. It's a fallacy. Anyone who says it, they're wrong. It's always a fallacy. It's the traditional diet fallacy, right? Even more traditional is, eating animals and burning fat. That's way more traditional. And they didn't have cancer. They didn't have diabetes. They didn't have dementia. They're just getting, high levels of plant and animal nutrition, being extremely active, and being stressed by natural environment through high levels of activity and cold weather, hot weather, sweating in the summer, freezing their butts off in the cold, developing that mitochondria, and like bathing in extremely cold weather, enduring sleeping in cold weather, getting cuts and bruises and stressors and all kinds of stuff that made their body extremely resilient, right? And now we suffer from the prince and princesses plague epidemic. That's our epidemic of princes and princesses. Everyone's a goddamn prince and princess, and that's why you need to get beat up. All these princes and princesses need to get beat up because you're far too soft, right? You're far too soft, and you have no natural immunity, and that's why. Okay, that's it for now, guys. All right. Thanks, and see you again soon. Bye.